Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
28,000 active cases daily and counting. Delhi seems to be collapsing under the weight of COVID, and at this point, what it misses the most, who it misses the most, is a doer chief minister, a doer leader like former Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit. Now, on one hand, we have Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, who's trying to manage the situation, but who obviously seems completely out of his depth. He's unable to handle the burden of COVID. He's unable to handle the tsunami that seems to have come his way. And on the other hand, you have the centre, you have Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah, who seem like COVID or Delhi aren't their priority at this point. Fighting elections in West Bengal is their priority. So between an out-of-depth Arvind Kejriwal and a disinterested, distracted Amit Shah, Delhi seems to be completely crumbling, completely bearing the brunt of the COVID pandemic. What had happened last year, what we saw last year, was that while Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal again seemed to be a little out of depth, inept at handling the kind of pandemic that had, the kind of wave that was coming, it was Home Minister Amit Shah who stepped in, who took stock of the situation and managed the situation. But at this point, even that doesn't seem to be handling. So on that front, Delhi seems to be facing the brunt, as I said. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's happening between Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and Home Minister Amit Shah. And then we'll talk about why we are talking about a leader like Sheila Dikshit that Delhi needs at this point. Well, last year what happened was that there was a lot of issue with how COVID was being managed in Delhi. There were questions about data fudging that were being raised. The Delhi Chief Minister had at one point said that all beds in the Delhi hospitals would only be for Delhiites. There was shortage of beds. It was fairly poorly managed. And then Home Minister Amit Shah, who till then had actually been in the background last year, came forward. He became like the super chief minister. He took stock of the situation. He visited hospitals. He ensured testing was ramped up. He ensured there was enough bed supply. There were enough beds in hospitals, and the situation seemed to look up. Now this year, last year seems to have come back in terms of Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. He again seems out of depth. It seems he himself in fact said there are less than 100 hospital beds available. He has appealed to the centre for help on the oxygen front. So on various fronts, Delhi at this point is struggling. There are no test slots available. When tests take place, reports don't come soon enough. But unlike last year, Home Minister Amit Shah does not seem to be interested in swooping in and sorting the issue out. Well, interestingly, last year there was a bit of politics also involved. BJP had been decimated in the state assembly polls, in the Delhi assembly polls just a few months earlier, and it was political messaging also on part of the BJP, on part of the centre, on the part of Home Minister Amit Shah to come in and sort of give a message to Delhiites that, see, the Chief Minister you've just elected is unable to manage the situation and I've had to come in to handle it for you. This year, however, politics is elsewhere. Politics is in West Bengal, politics is in Assam, where elections are happening, and that is where the focus of the Narendra Modi-Amit Shah duo has been. Delhi elections are nowhere on the horizon, so obviously Delhi hasn't been a political priority as well. And in that process, the situation seems to be worsening in the national capital. What Delhi at this point really needs is someone who's committed to Delhi, someone who's wholly interested in Delhi and who's wholly focusing on Delhi, and at the same time is able to implement a vision, is able to handle the situation, has a grip over the situation. And neither Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal nor Home Minister Amit Shah tick that box, because while Chief Minister Kejriwal, of course, is committed to Delhi, he seems to be, as I said, struggling to manage, and Home Minister Amit Shah, well, does not seem to be interested in Delhi at this point at all. Now, let's talk a little bit about former Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit. She's known as the face of modern day Delhi. She's known as the face of change in Delhi, the face of development in Delhi. She had 3 terms as Chief Minister, and Delhi literally changed under her rule, under her reign. There were almost about 70 flyovers that came up. She also took difficult decisions, which included the conversion, the switch over to the compressed national gas, which we call as CNG, for public transport like buses, autos, which was a very, very difficult move, and which left a much cleaner, greener Delhi than what it was earlier. So, we had a chief minister who had a vision and who had the ability to implement that vision. Delhi had a chief minister who was committed to the state, committed to the cause of Delhi, committed to the cause of Delhiites, and most importantly had a grip over administration. Now this grip over governance is something which is most crucial at a point like this, at a time like this, when there is a pandemic that has hit us which nobody knows anything about, and that seems to be missing as far as Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal is concerned, although he has been Chief Minister for a while. But clearly, as the last wave and as this wave show, he does not seem to have an adequate grip over the situation. Now, on the other hand, Home Minister Amit Shah has not stepped in, is reluctant to step in at this point because he has other priorities. And from what we understood from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address to the nation last night, it doesn't look like the centre is planning to come to the rescue of state governments to a great extent. In fact, given how bad the situation is, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has been forced to impose a 1-week-long curfew. He's extending last weekend's curfew for another week. So, in this entire process, it's Delhi that seems to be suffering. And Sheila Dikshit may not have had a glorious end to her political career, far from it, in fact. But she is someone who even her worst critics remember as a good administrator, as someone with a grip over governance, as someone with a grip over affairs of running a state. And that is what Delhi at this point needs the most. It's unfortunate for Delhi that it's not getting it either from Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal or from Home Minister Amit Shah, given how overwhelmingly the state had voted for the Aam Aadmi Party in the last assembly elections, and how equally overwhelmingly the state had voted for the BJP in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. But clearly both parties that it has reposed faith in the general as well as state elections seem to be letting Delhi down at this point. For more, you can log on to our website, ThePrint.in, to read my column, PoliTricks.